Good evening. Very good. My name is Kojo, and I'm the president here. Can you hear me okay in the back? Hello? Feedback? Hello? Any better?
You got a question you want to ask?
We're fixing that. We're fixing it. Can you hear me now? All right, very good. Good evening. My name is Cody, and I'm the president here at Monroe County Community College. And it's great to have you all here this evening. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you all here this evening. All right. It's a pleasure to have you all here this evening. Can you hear me? All right, very good. So tonight it's a semi-town hall format, and essentially the way it's going to work is that we are going to begin with opening statements by the two candidates, Sheriff Malone and Dave Uhl, and then I will have a couple of questions from me, and then Penny, my assistant, my lovely assistant there, and my other lovely assistant there, they will go around, and if you have questions, you should have cards already. Write the questions on the cards. We don't want anybody, in other words, we want the questions to come to me, so I ask the questions of the candidates. We don't want anybody preaching before they pose a question or any of that. So we'll be under very controlled circumstances here, fair enough? And so before we begin, you are at Monroe County Community College. We've been here for 52 years, and we just happen to be on the ballot also on the 8th of November. You should have some information on your tables there. And it's a 5-year, yeah, I think the baby there really appreciates that. You heard it right after I said that. And so we're on the ballot, and we will be the very last item at the bottom of the ballot. It's to repair our facilities, to get our facilities, to maintain our facilities. We've lost $18 million over the last several years because of the Headley Amendment and the decreases in property taxes. It's a 5-year millage request. If you own a $100,000 home, it's going to cost you $42.50 a month. And part of this request also, and I see Jason Shepard here and Zon and LaVoy, are they here? Our current representatives were able to get us $3.75 million from the state, which needs to be matched. We don't have the money to match it. So the village is going to help us raise the money to match that $3.75 million. If we can't match it, this entire community stands to lose $3.75 million. As a college, our economic impact is over $100 million a year. This college. Over 70% of individuals in our county have either attended or have family members who attended this institution. How many have some affiliation with this college? Raise your hand. You went here, you have family members who went here. Okay. You have friends who went here. Raise your hand. Okay. Enemies who went here or are currently here. Don't count me. But anyway, so.
Could you, kind of question you before you go any further?
Yes, sir.
Did you say for a $100,000 home, it was going to cost the homeowner $42 a month?
50 a year. Right. I should have money. All right. Correction. Yeah. That's a big no-vote. Look, $42.50 a year. Let's get that all right. You may. I have gifts for you, folks. Gifts, folks. And so we've been crisscrossing the entire county, going door to door, and we're leaving material at people's doors, and we're not done yet. So please, please, please support your college. Nelson Mandela said, education is the most important weapon which we can use to change the world. It's the best investment you can make in your community, ladies and gentlemen. So please, on November 8th, go out there and vote yes to support the Monroe County community. Okay, it's about half and half. All right, I don't know what that means. So, moving on. Thank you. I want to thank all of you for coming, but I want to thank our the candidates here, Sheriff Malone and Dave Uhl here for being here this evening. And I'll begin with Sheriff Malone. Some opening statements. If you have an opening statement, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and there's opening statement from Sheriff Malone. And by the way, at the end also, you'll have a chance to make closing statements. So over to you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Dr. Kodu, for inviting us out here. Can everybody hear me? All right. I also want to thank everybody for coming out here this evening. My first year in office, representing you, the citizens of Monroe County, we received dozens and dozens of complaints about record drivers and the costs that they were charging you, the individuals in Monroe County. At that point, I decided to call in all the record drivers and have a meeting telling them that either they were going to have to quit doing business the way they were doing business, or we were going to change the way we did business. And the reason I bring that up, I was going through Mr. Uhl's financial statement for the first, before the primary, and I noticed the number of record drivers that has donated to his campaign. I also noticed the number of individuals and businesses in the village of Dundee that also donated to his campaign. And lastly, I noticed the number of correctional officers that had donated to his campaign. This is the list right here, the second list of the correctional officers. The reason I bring this up is tonight we're going to talk about special interest groups, and this is what the people of the county and the country don't want. We don't want special interest groups running candidates in their job. My wife and I had several hundred friends and family members volunteer to donate to the campaign, and we decided to finance the campaign ourselves. Other than 5 individuals, 2 local farmers, a hunting buddy, one of the officers over here, and Danny Mitten's group, the Laborers 499. Danny, I just want to point out real quick, was the first person to step up to the plate and volunteer their services, and he donated $2,000. He was one of the major sponsors, as I was Victory Honda, when we raised $53,000 for Ryan. So he's had many people affected by the drug problem that work for him and their family members, so kudos to him. The problem when you have the endorsements is that Dave Uhl here has promised to deputize all the police departments throughout the county. That's one of his 2 endorsements that he obtained. The other endorsement was the corrections union. He's promised the corrections officers that he's going to give them back all the money that we've saved over the last 4 years in unnecessary overtime. To date, that's over $600,000. He's also promised them that he would make them all reserve deputies. He's promised to give them all guns. He's promised to take away 7 deputies from the deputies union and give those jobs to corrections officers. And he's promised to violate the deputies' contract by bringing in volunteers to do their jobs. This is the only thing that we know for sure because he's been campaigning on this for the last 4 months. The only thing we've promised is we promised that we are going to continue allocating what resources that we have available to combat the drug problem. We promise that we're going to continue to raise funds for those recovery groups throughout the county, particularly Ryan's Hope, Paula's house, and Hope for Heroin. We promise that we're going to continue to be fiscally responsible, and we promise that our deputies will continue to give 100%. They've dropped the crime rate in Monroe County for 4 consecutive years, and we want them to do that for another 4 years. So this campaign is about clear choices, special interest groups, and all the promises that Dave Uhl's made to those people in the special interest groups, or somebody like myself who hasn't promised anything to anybody. That means I can go out and do the job, and I can do it fairly for everybody in Monroe County. 2 things I want you to remember while we talk this evening is, 1, remember, you all got pieces of paper and pencils. Write down what you think it's going to cost for his proposals, because we've done our math. And secondly, I want you to remember these 2 phrases, because we're going to discuss it in closing arguments: failure to train and failure to supervise. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Malone. Dave Uhl, please, opening comments.
Thank you, Dr. Corte. I want to thank the community college for hosting this forum tonight, and I want to thank everyone for coming. It's a great turnout, and hopefully we can answer a lot of questions and dispel a lot of rumors that are being spread. First, a little bit about myself. 35 years retired from the Monroe County Sheriff's Department. Retired from the Sheriff's Department and was approached by the Village of Dundee to start a police department from the ground level. They were not happy with the amount of money that they were spending in the village, and they had crunched some numbers and decided to start their own police department. They asked me to take that position, and also indicated that if I didn't take that position, they were going to hire somebody else. Being from Dundee, born and raised there, I kind of felt a little allegiance to the village, and I told them that I would take on that position. So I started the department from the ground level, hired a lot of officers with many, many years' experience from the city police, from the Michigan State Police, from Monroe County Sheriff's Department, and started that department, and then ended up within a year 24/7 coverage for the Village of Dundee. That department has grown throughout the years with different divisions and expertise in the department. We also added a volunteer, and there seems to be a misconception with my citizen volunteers that is a national program from Homeland Security. They do not carry guns. They do not replace officers on the road. They do not take officers' positions. They are added function to the department. They patrol stores. They walk around your subdivisions. If an officer has a car that's pulled over for a mechanical problem, instead of leaving a police officer sitting there, you put that police officer back on the road so he can attend to calls and do police work, what he's supposed to do. They bring the volunteer car up, and that person is trained to sit there and block traffic and keep that family safe until a wrecker can arrive or a family member can arrive. They serve a lot of functions. They work the Christmas and Ida Parade. They work the Monroe County Fair for special events. The Michigan State Police uses our volunteers in Dundee to do their training for disasters and emergency services. They use them for blocking streets off and working traffic. Programs all over the country, departments all over the country use this volunteer program. I first found out about this program in Florida, and that particular department has 150 citizen volunteers. One of the other important things our volunteers do is they do a senior watch program. and you have a elderly relative that maybe you can't see all the time, maybe you don't live in the area, we will visit with them. We will stop, the volunteers will stop by. They may take the trash out for them. They may help them, we've had them help them change a light fixture. Just kept them company. We have one volunteer that is an expert in insurance because he worked at the University of Michigan and he worked in the health insurance industry. And he sits with the seniors and gets on and helps them get their insurance straightened around if they have a problem and makes calls for them. That's what the volunteers do. And they're a well-respected program nationwide. After serving 4 years as the chief of police in Dundee, the village lost their manager. They came to me and asked me to be the interim manager until they could find somebody and try to right the ship. I had that position for 10 months while I was doing the police chief's job at the same time. And at the end of 10 months, they liked what was going on, and we did right the ship in Dundee and got us back on track to growth and in the way that Dundee used to look. They came to me and asked me if I would take that as a full-time position. I agreed to it. After talking with my family, I agreed to it, so I've been the full-time village manager for the last 2 years in Dundee. I am married with 2 grown children. One of them is a corrections officer, and I hear all the things that go on. I hear all the disgruntled employees in the correctional union. I also hear from many, many deputies that are not happy with what's going on in the department. These are the people that contacted me shortly after my opponent started his term and asked me to start thinking about running for sheriff. And I made that decision, and that's what brings me here today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, we see there are some people standing. We have more chairs coming out. So please, there are chairs available for you to sit. And I didn't expect this large of a crowd. Had I known, we would have charged an entrance fee. Get some of that village money in advance. But anyway. All right. So, just a couple of questions from me, and then we'll turn to you. Why do you believe, and to each one of you, why do you believe you're the best qualified candidate for this position? Sheriff Malone first, and if you could be brief, both of you, please. I think normally we try to do this in an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and some people have said to me that there is a game they want to go, baseball game on later, but that's neither here nor there, but serious stuff now. Let's, why do you believe you're the best qualified candidate?
Dave Uhl and I, for the first 20 years of our career, we pretty much did the same things within the sheriff's department. And that's where he took his path, career down one path, I took mine down the second path. I took the promotional test after 20 years and scored number 1 on the test and was promoted to sergeant. I became the afternoon road sergeant for 2 years. Then the next test came up and I took that test and I scored number 1 on that and got promoted to lieutenant. I went down to Bedford Township, and I was in charge of 5 townships as the district lieutenant down there for 4 years. 2009, at the start of 2009, I was promoted to Major of Operations, in charge of the road patrol, second in command. And then at the end of 2010, I retired for 14 months. I remodeled my house that my wife and I built back in 1996. Working was much easier. And then we started our campaign in 2012, and now I've served the citizens of Monroe County for 4 years as sheriff. At that split where I was talking about with Dave Uhl, the path he chose was to go to become a school resource officer. He did that for 8 years, and then his last 13 years at the sheriff's office, he chose by his seniority to bid the village of Dundee, one of the slowest areas in Monroe County. So where my path went this way, his path went this way. I think that speaks volumes about itself. This isn't a position where you elect somebody to this job with no experience at the sheriff's office in a command position. You can't learn on the job as you go. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to have dealt with discipline issues, contract negotiations, citizen complaints, all those things that come along with being a supervisor. That's why I, and the vast majority of the deputies, feel I'm the most qualified candidate.
Thank you, Sheriff Malone. Dave Uhl, please.
Thank you, Mr. Corte. I did not choose to go into administration. I never took a test. When I first started, there were no tests. I was asked many, many times to become a sergeant. I liked being in the trenches. I liked working on the road. I worked the drug squad. I worked traffic and safety. I worked the detective bureau. I worked on the Marine Division. I had a canine. And to me, that's where you learn when you work in the trenches. That's how you learn to run an organization. One of the things that everyone needs to understand is rank does not equal leadership. Thank you.
Before we turn to the audience, what do you believe is the top priority in terms of what the sheriff's office should be doing in this county at this time? What is the top, or should be the top priority?
There's so many top priorities. It's hard to pick out one. The obvious is the drug problem. When we took over in 2013, let's go back to 2010, when the local Omni drug unit was dismantled. 2011 and half 2012, Monroe County went without a drug unit. They formed back up in April, May, and they started hitting the streets around September, October, right before we took office. So we knew we were going into a hornet's nest. First thing we did is we added personnel to the managed drug unit. We also decided we needed more enforcement. So we wrote a grant, Operation Gateway, with the U.S. Border Patrol that also had to do with deals with Homeland Security and the city police. The Border Patrol named Operation Gateway themselves. In 2014, we started hitting all the known drug areas, and we started hitting them hard. In fact, as you can see over on North Dixie Highway, Nights Inn and Motel 6 have been closed down. That's a direct reflection on what our officers have done. On top of that, in 2015, towards the end of it, the city decided to start their own vice unit. We added personnel to that. So between Operation Gateway, between Manus, and between Vice, not including what our guys have done on the road, they've made 1,079 arrests in the last 4 years. Obviously, that's a priority for us, but there's also other issues that we'll be able to talk about this evening as the questions start coming in. So we're going to continue down that path. It's as equally important, though, to support the people in the recovery aspect of that. Paula's House has done a tremendous job. Hope for Heroin is just starting up, and I think that's going to be a great program. Ryan's Hope has sent 30 people into treatment from the money that we raised this year. So I want you to think about that. This is a community problem. This isn't a law enforcement problem. We've had drugs in Monroe County for hundreds of years, there'll be drugs for another hundreds of years. We have to tackle this problem as a community, not just a police agency.
You know, every place I go and speak and ask to speak in churches and community functions, I ask everyone to raise their hand that is not affected by heroin or prescription or drug abuse, and there isn't one person in the audience that doesn't raise their hand. Could be their neighbor, could be their relatives, their friends, their grandchildren, their children. Everyone is affected by it. It is not getting any better. It's getting worse every day. Matter of fact, the Drug Coalition, the head of the Drug Coalition, had in the Monroe County News of mid-June of 2015, 32 people died from heroin. That tied, in the Monroe County News, that tied all of the deaths for the entire 2014. It is not getting better. What we are doing is not working. We're not thinking outside the box. We are not working with all agencies. We are not especially working with the municipal associations. I've had all police agencies complaining about the lack of cooperation. We must cooperate, not just the last 6 months of your term, the entire 4 years. You must cooperate. We must reach out. I've been to many, many church organizations for addicts that have different programs, and we must include them in all agencies in Monroe County, or we are not going to tackle this problem. The other thing that we're missing is we must get much more aggressive. I bet you everybody in this room knows where there's drugs being sold. I went down to Bedford. They point at the motels on Telegraph Road. In the city, there's needles in Kroger's parking lot. There's people shooting up heroin. There's a motel down at Dunbar and South Monroe Street that a business owner pointed out to me, said nothing's being done. We need to get more aggressive in that area. We need to continue with all the undercover and those types of attacks on drugs, but we're missing the attack, the direct attack on dealers. If you're at the motels in Bedford dealing drugs, and on a daily basis, officers pull in there, and I'll use the word harass. People don't like that word for police, but I'll tell you, we will harass the drug dealers, and we will send them back to Toledo, and we will send them back to Detroit, and we'll send them back to Ypsilanti. That is what this county is missing.
Thank you. We have questions from the audience now, and it's a lot of questions, and I don't know, I don't think we can get through all these questions, and I have more questions coming, but the first one for Sheriff Malone. The governor passed a bill effective July 1st, 2015 that requires law enforcement agencies to take the DNA of persons arrested for a felony. Did your office enforce that?
In 2015, in July of 2015, the legislators up in Lansing were trying to figure out how they could make law enforcement agencies throughout the state become compliant with a law that was passed back in 2000 dealing with DNA samples taken from individuals who were convicted of felonies. At that time, Monroe County was a compliance 95% rate. Neighbors to the north were less than 10%. And just like anything, instead of dealing with the agencies that are not in compliance, they passed a law that said we will take DNA upon arraignment. Further in the law, it states that you will track the DNA from the time you take it, and that's the easy process. It takes 5 minutes to take the DNA, put it all together, submit it to the evidence room. Our evidence person comes in, takes that, logs that evidence into the computer, and ships it off to the Michigan State Police Crime Lab. That's the easy part. Anybody can do that. The hard part of that is the tracking of the individual to find out whether or not that charge was reduced to a misdemeanor or dismissed. Now, Dave Uhl, Dundee, and the rest of the small police departments last year arrested 165 people. Out of that, there may be 20 felony cases they arrested. That's easy to follow. We arrested 2,887 people last year. Over 500 of those cases are felony cases. So that would require me to do one of two things. Either take the extra personnel that I currently had out of the drug unit and have them track the DNA that we take up to 500 cases every month, because what the law says is you shall remove that DNA from the system in a reasonable time. It also says if you don't remove that DNA within a reasonable time, you're subject to a $1,000 penalty for each case that you do not take out of the system, and it's a misdemeanor. Many agencies throughout the state, since that time that they took the DNA, have not removed one sample. They've set themselves up for lawsuits. That's something that I refuse to do. So as soon as the law was passed, I got a hold of Jason Shepard, he's in the room here, Bill Lavoie, and Dale Zorn. Explained the situation to them. This came out of Lansing as an unfunded mandate, and we decided that we were going to try and correct the problem through Lansing. In August of this year, Jason, after I met with the prosecutor and a representative from the Michigan Prosecuting Attorneys Association, we came up with a solution to avoid the responsibility being placed on the departments that the defendant himself, upon arraignment, would be given a sheet of paper, and it would be their responsibility to, if the case got removed down to a misdemeanor or pled out, that they would take it to the judge, have it signed, and then it's their responsibility to take it out of the system. As soon as Jason introduced that, we started taking our DNA samples. 2 weeks ago, the prosecutor from Monroe County and Dale Zorn introduced the same legislation on the Senate side. We're hoping that this gets passed before the end of the year. However, yesterday we got 2 additional deputies, just in case that doesn't get passed, by working our budget for 2017 without a cost to the citizens of Monroe County, again being fiscally responsible, that we'll have the personnel to track that. We're hoping that the amendment to their legislation gets passed, and then we can take that person that we got okayed last night through the commissioners and put them in the drug unit. This question I knew was coming up, but I also knew that I had to explain it specifically so you understood that I intentionally did not set our agency up and the citizens of Monroe County for civil lawsuits.
Thank you. This question is for candidate Uhl. Why has it been portrayed by the Sheriff's Office personnel that you will be shutting down the Red Shirt Work Program? What are your plans for this program?
I have never said that I was going to shut down the Red Shirt program, and I know that's been going on. We've had people call that the Red Shirt program uses, including the Monroe County Fair, where I'm on the board, and the people that are supervising the inmates in those programs are telling the people where they're doing the work at that if you elect Dave Uhl sheriff, he's going to shut this program down. I've had these people calling me and telling me this is going on. I never indicated I was going to shut that program down, so this is a good question. I plan on continuing that program. That program needs a lot of reorganization. It is not being handled very well. They had some incidences, one, an escape And that is where the civilian employee that is handling them gave a cell phone to an inmate and allowed him to use the cell phone where he called his girlfriend to come and pick him up. And they ended up finding him after many man-hours in Detroit, where he had escaped from the Red Shirt program. It needs some reorganization. This program used to be handled by a correctional officer, and that correctional officer was taken out of that position, and 2 people were put into that position that supported my opponent in his last election bid. So it needs to continue. It needs to be reorganized.
Dr. Kodu, can we rebut?
Sure, go right ahead.
The position was a corrections position. It was part of the cuts that took place in 2008. I campaigned that I was going to bring the Red Shirt program back, which I did. We benefited almost every community throughout the county. As you drive down the streets and you see those guys picking up the garbage, that's our crew. For a full-time position, when I took over on the correction side with benefits, it was over $85,000. I started the program with one guy at $25,000. $20,000 of that was wages. The other $5,000 went towards the equipment that he was using to go around. It was such a successful program that we approached the commissioners and requested a second person, which they granted. Now it's $50,000, $40,000 in wages for those people. The incident that he talks about did happen. The officer turned his back, went to the bathroom, came out. He seen the guy going down the road, called it out. They were able to catch him 4 days later. He had less than a week to go. He was a heroin addict. He decided he was having troubles, couldn't deal with it in the jail. So he went to Detroit, shot up for 4 days, got 7 years in prison.
All right. Sheriff Malone, this is for you. Why have you not been involved within the community with the Heroin Coalition, drug summits, and any churches? No, and churches. All of them are willing to help. Why not work together?
The question is vague. The Monroe County Drug Coalition is doing an outstanding job. They're doing things that we do not have the manpower to do. They're getting into the schools. They're getting pledges from the seniors, junior seniors on the drunk drive-ins. All those things that we would like to be doing, they're doing as far as the educational part of the recovery, education, enforcement. If you guys remember, back in 2002, we had 85 deputies. In 2010, we had 78. When I took over, we had 57, okay? We had just enough bodies. We went from 36 bodies on the road patrol down to 18. That left 6 people on each shift. 2 people are always off, naturally on your pass days. Then the other one, you take a personal sick day, you're down to 3 or 2 cars per shift, okay? That's what we've been dealing with. We've been able to get 6 more officers since we took over from our restructuring. So you have to understand there is a group of professional meeting goers in Monroe County. I guarantee you, Dave Uhl says he will attend every meeting. He will. There's no doubt about that, okay? We don't have the manpower to attend every meeting. Our function is law enforcement, and that's what we concentrate on.
Dr. Corte, since we're going to let rebuttals go on, I think it's my turn. Yes, I will come to meetings, just like I do for the Village of Dundee. That's how you make connections. I belong to many, many organizations and committees. That's how you get things done. That's the sheriff's job. The sheriff's job is to go out and politic. It's to go talk with the county commissioners, the organizations, to bring money and grants into the sheriff's department. The sheriff doesn't even go to the Municipal Police Chiefs Association meeting. Doesn't even go to the Monroe County Police Chiefs Association. I get complaints all over that nobody comes from the sheriff's department, and that is true. I will be there. I will attend the meetings. I will go out and bring things into the sheriff's department.
Do you have any plans to get police officers back into all of our communities, schools?
This is a very good subject because we do need, it used to be a long time ago in my career, we had somebody almost in every one of the schools. And we've gotten away from that. And we've got to try to get back to that. I think one of the things we need to do, if we can get some more people on the road in our plan, is we need to get a person that is in the, just to go into the schools and work drugs in the schools alone and work all the schools. But we really need to get somebody, all officers, back into the liaison programs in the school. And I've thought about it a lot. When we went to Dundee, the Sheriff's Department lost the liaison program in Dundee, and a lot of them, and it was due to finances. The schools can't afford it. It's a lot of money, and they can't afford it, and I don't blame them. They went through budget cuts, but that's part of working together. And I want to talk to the county commissioners because something just doesn't strike the accord with me. The citizens, the citizens of the county, are already paying for deputies' wages, you're paying for their pensions, you're paying for their health insurance, and then when they go into a school, or like we contract at the Monroe County Fair for the deputies, the wages are way, way more because they are charging again for all their health insurance and all their benefits. It's already being paid, so it doesn't make any sense to me. I think that needs to be talked about with the commissioners and Mr. Bosonic in the finance department. It's almost like double dipping. I don't understand it, and I've asked and asked and asked at the county, and nobody can explain it to me. So what we did in Dundee is, and I understand you have to do a little administrative fee, but what we did in Dundee is we put somebody in the school at cost, what it cost for his wages. And then we added an administrative fee on top of that. And Dundee immediately decided to take a liaison officer in a school. That benefits the police department because then the officers aren't running to that school every time they turn around to handle a complaint. So I think it's something that, so it benefits everybody, it benefits the community, and I think it's something that we at least need to sit down and talk with the county about and see, why we charge back to municipalities fees that are already being paid for by the citizens. And we just need to sit down and talk about that and see if we can't give the schools a break, if we can't at least make it affordable to them so that we can get officers back into the school where they belong.
Real quick, it's called the union, and you're enjoying those union benefits in your retirement. Go ahead.
Sheriff Malone, you have stated that crime across the board has dropped 40%, but you also state that our jail is constantly overcrowded. How is the jail over capacity if crime is down at that high of a percentage?
Okay, think about that question. We're locking up a lot of bad guys, and they're going to jail. We're locking up the right bad guys. That's why crime's going down.
Can you explain your idea for a citizen advisory committee? How will this be set up?
It's a good question. It's part of my campaign, and I've put that out there. It's part of and I explained to everybody, there's always been this wall. And the citizens are on one side of the wall, and the police are on the other side of the wall. And it's always been that kind of not stated thing that we don't cross that barrier and work together. I want to take that wall down, and I want to engage with the citizens. I want to engage with the businesses. I want to engage with the community. I want to engage with the churches and the organizations and the addiction programs and work together. So as part of that, I want to form a citizen advisory committee. And that committee would meet on a monthly basis. And that could be 30, 40, 50 people, I don't know. And it could consist of prosecutors, judges, supervisors from the township, mayors, council members, other police agencies, pastors from churches, people representing the addiction programs, the treatment facilities, people representing the hospital, the local hospital. And you put all these people together, including citizens, a lot of citizens, so from different areas of the county. So you have, Bedford has different needs than Carlton has. Dundee has different needs than the city of Monroe. So you have to look at each one of those areas differently. So you have representatives from all over the county on the Citizen Advisory Board. And the most thing that I want to do is I want to tell them what's going on in the Sheriff's Department and in the county, but mostly I want to listen to them. I want them to tell me what they're seeing in their neighborhoods. I want them to tell me what they'd like to see the direction of the Sheriff's Department. I'd like them to respond, to give ideas, and what they would like to see help our community come together and fight all the problems that we have in our community.
Yes, sure. I was elected by the citizens of Monroe County to run our operation. I wasn't elected sheriff of Monroe County to get 50 people to come in and tell me once a month what's going on in the county. While Dave Uhl's out attending meetings every single morning, I go in and the very first thing I do is read every police report. We know what's going on in the county. We have a pass-on system. Every one of these deputies that are in the room, anything that's major in their day-to-day operations, they share with the rest of the department. An example, domestic violence. Hey, we got a good one on this guy. I was unable to locate him. The next shift comes in. They jump right on it. We got that person arrested before the end of that guy's shift. It's called cooperation. But again, when I talked about experience, maybe he doesn't know how to do all those things with discipline and all that other stuff, but we don't need 50 people from the community telling us how to do that. That's why you're elected sheriff.
It's called community engagement. It's called listening to your customers, and that's what I call them. The citizens are your customers. And that's why when I knock on the doors, people tell me they don't even know who the sheriff is because he doesn't get out of his office.
Where do you each stand on the Second Amendment?
Good. Last time, when I started in 2013, 2012, when I was campaigning, I told everybody that we support the Second Amendment. We respect the right of all the CPL holders in Monroe County. A reporter last week when she asked me about the DNA question. She said, when a law is passed, aren't you required to follow that law? I said, listen, if the government passed a law tomorrow that said, I will go out and take the guns of everybody in this community, that's never gonna happen, okay? We have 13 guys on our SWAT team. I know right now that I could put out a call and within 4 hours have 25,000 gun owners in Monroe County if we had to protect our borders, okay? We respect the rights of gun owners and we support the Second Amendment 100%.
Second Amendment, please.
This might be one of the few things that we agree upon. Second Amendment is every citizen's right in this country, and they have the right to bear arms. They also have I know they're also talking, I've talked with many NRA members who are now looking at the right for silencers. They're very concerned about that. They've heard otherwise about silencers. I agree with that. I also agree with I'll be a constitutional sheriff. And it does not matter if the government sets a law that says we will take everyone's arms. They're not getting mine, so they aren't getting yours.
Okay, with the poverty population rapidly increasing in our community, and knowing that education is the key to climbing out of poverty, cure for poverty, they would like to know what Sheriff Malone has done about parental education, neglect, truancy of young children in our community, and what Dave Uhl will do about this if elected. So,
I missed the first part of the question, but
okay,
I
so
think
poverty
I got
is
it.
rising.
I got it.
Yeah.
I think I got enough to answer the question. Well, the Monroe County Prosecutor's Office put out a set of guidelines for every law enforcement agency to follow on the truancy issues. We made that policy and procedures at the Sheriff's Office. Our guys out on the streets follow that to a T. Earlier, he referenced school resource officers. The three districts that we still have work closely with the truant officers for those districts, but each district in the county has their own truancy officers that deals with the majority of those problems. They come to us, they contact us if there's severe cases, and our officers fill out the appropriate paperwork and send it to the prosecutor's office. So that's universal throughout all the law enforcement agencies in the county.
All right, thank you, Mr. Uhl.
That goes back to what I was talking about, trying to get liaison officers back in all the public schools in our county. It's a very important thing. When I was a liaison officer, it's very important for the kids to get that partnership with the police officers, so they trust them, so that you can talk to them, so that they can come to you when they're in trouble or want to talk to somebody. And you could went out to their houses many times, kids not coming to school, and sat down and talked with them and worked with their parents to try to get them back into the school system. So it's very important to get the officers back into school, get the officers into the neighborhoods and learning who the children are and talking to them and getting that relationship with them. I was able to get many kids that were not in school to come back to school, and then I could talk to them in the classroom, because I also taught in the classrooms. I just didn't do regular liaison work in the class. I also taught classes with other teachers, and I've built that relationship with them. So that's why I think it's very important that we sit down and try to get police officers back in all the schools.
Okay, there is a house divided at the sheriff's office right now due to this election. If re-elected or elected, What are you going to do to close the divide and unify the department and make a better work environment? Mr. Uhl, you want to go first?
You know, there shouldn't be a divide. The police departments should all be equal, and should employees be equal. And I know after, and just from being on the sheriff's department for years and years, and then going, and I talked to the municipal police chiefs about it. There's Chief Ansel from Erie Township. We've talked about this a lot. There was always this thing, and it's not all officers would say, you know, these guys don't know what they're doing. They're a bunch of wannabes. You know, they couldn't make it somewhere else, and they've always been kind of looked down upon. And even when I was a deputy, those things went on. And then there's always this stigma that, oh, they're just a corrections officer. That has got to go away. And then there was always, with the Michigan State Police, oh, don't talk to them. Don't share anything with them. That has got to go away. Everybody has got to work together. Everybody is part of the team. And we have to work to make that happen. The corrections officers are part of the team. The small police departments are part of the team. The state police and the Monroe City Police are all parts of the team. And we have to work together and change that attitude and that atmosphere.
Sheriff Malone.
Our department is divided in half, especially when it comes to finances. We have roughly $8.5 million that go towards the corrections division, $8.5 million to go towards the road side. On the officer side, I can't praise these guys enough. What they do on a daily basis, they've been asked to do more with less, and they've stepped up to the plate. This is the first time in 4 years that a union has not filed one grievance against their boss. I want to thank the deputies for that. The correction side, they endorsed my opponent last time. I knew some of the scams that they were running in the correction side, including the unnecessary overtime. That's why I was able to save over $600,000 in unnecessary overtime. The vast majority of my corrections officers are great people. They do things with the manpower that they have that I can't tell you how proud I am of those people. Unfortunately, the union leader on their side tries to convince them that there's this witch hunt out for them. It's as simple as this. Most of the corrections officers on our department show up to work, do their job, and I might say they do a great job and go home. Then you have a group of correctional officers that will argue with everything that they're told to do by their supervisor. We've had an open door policy since the day we took office. Many officers have stopped by the office and we spoke to them. That invitation stands right now to all the correctional officers that are in this room. You want to discuss something? Stop by the office.
Could each of you speak briefly to what formal education you have? Formal education?
I came out of the community college. I went to Eastern Michigan University. I don't have a degree in either one of those. And then I went to Detroit. At the time, they were sending people to the Detroit Police Academy. And then all the formal training that we've had, both of us at the department, since we were at the office. We're kind of like the Colin Powells. We learned while we're at the office, but then all the advanced supervisor development schools that I've attended. So the educational part was on hand while we worked. and as we worked our way through the ranks.
Mr. Uhl?
I attended classes at the community college here, also attended classes in Washtenaw Community College. I did not obtain a degree either. With family and job, pretty hard to do. And so I went to a lot of different classes, a lot of training in different police areas, and continuing education throughout my 35-year career of classes.
All right, thank you. How much experience do each of you have working side by side with unions? I've had some union issues here.
I think we know that answer, but for
They've been resolved. Union issues have been resolved. It'll be in the paper tomorrow. All right?
For the first 29 years at the sheriff's office, I was a union representative on both the deputy side and the command side. In fact, I never seen my opponent at a union meeting. I filed grievances from the other side. I've defended grievances. That's an important part of the day-to-day operations at the sheriff's office is give and take. The Police Officers Association of Michigan, the largest police organization in state, has never worked with somebody as well as they've worked with our administration. That's why we have their endorsement.
Mr. Uhl?
Well, you must not have been looking very well, because I attended many union meetings in my 35 and a half years and worked well with them. I went to Dundee. I'm in contract negotiations right now with our street department, also our office staff. And I look forward to working with all unions. I was a member of a union for 35 and a half years. And I look forward to working with the county union and moving forward with that.
Talk about fiscal responsibility, and in particular, the dog kennel manpower.
This may sound crazy, but I swear this is the truth. In 2012, we went to over 8,500 doors, knocking on doors, talking with citizens in Monroe County. And I know what you all think. You all think that the #1 complaint was going to be the drug problem. Wasn't even close. We had over 1,000 people complain about animal control. I'm an animal lover, but I'm telling you, animal lovers are really animal lovers, okay? I seen that firsthand when I was major of operations. The director that was out there at the time, within my first 2 months of being major of operations, that was one of the functions, I received over 24 complaints about her attitude. We listened to the citizens of Monroe County. The very first move that we made is we did some restructuring within our budget, and we put a supervisor out there, a sergeant, Jeff Kovenich. He did a 180 out there. The very first thing after he took over, we changed the hours out there. It was Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. We made it Tuesday through Saturday, making it more convenient for the community. We've received over $300,000 in grants and donations because of the accomplishments we've taken out there. In 2014, we were recognized as the #1 turnaround county in the state for adoptions. We do not euthanize dogs or cats anymore just to make space out there. We have 4 full-time employees. We got 1 part-time employees. And most importantly, the volunteer groups out there are just second to none. They're the ones that come in, they're the ones that take the animals to different organizations throughout the state and get these animals adopted. They're the ones, if an animal needs to go to the vets, they do the transports. They're the ones that seek financial assistance for the food for all the animals that we have out there. I can't tell you how extremely proud we are of the way we do things out there, and both Jeff Kovenich and Greg Berman deserve a big hand on that.
Mr. Uhl?
The doors I knocked on, heroin and prescription drugs were the #1 problem. I did talk to the, reached out to the volunteer groups at Animal Control, and they really like Sergeant Berman. But when I sat down and talked with them, they understood that as a community, we need to get police officers back on the road. And they then immediately started naming names of people in their organization, volunteers, that would make great individuals to run animal control. So they were very excited when I talked to them about being able to make that reorganization, and they completely understood that for the community, we need to get officers back on the road.
And so what I'll do is try to just ask a few more questions and then go to closing statements. And please understand that we can't, these are quite a few questions here, quite a lot of questions, so we can't ask all of them. And so just because of that, don't vote no. Anyway. All right. What is your stance, both of you please, what is your stance on proactive policing with road patrol deputies? Proactive police.
Again, we've hired 17 deputies since I've taken office. That's through retirements and the additional officers that we've been able to attain through the county commissioners. Excuse me. In every one of your jobs, everybody in this room, you know what it's like when you get that rookie coming in and wants to solve the world's problems. That's a good problem to have, okay? Our guys are out there every day being proactive. They're, I guess the best example, and we see this on a daily basis, but a young lady posted on Facebook, I don't know who stopped by, and my kid was dressed up as a police officer. This was on Halloween, and I have an idea who the officer was, but he handed the young lad a badge and says, you can't become a canine officer, okay, without being a sworn police officer. And he went home and he was shining. She didn't know the officer's name. She posted it. But let me tell you, that's what our department is about, okay? Getting out in the community. Last year, we went over down in Bedford Township and up in the Frenchtown area. We went over to 2,000 houses, passing out brochures on our SNAP program, Safe Neighborhood Awareness Program. Nothing more than to stop by, inform the citizens of what to be on the lookout for, who to contact, how to contact. That's being proactive, okay? Prior to taking office, we were told, because of budget cuts and finances, sit at a corner and don't burn all the gas in your patrol car. That's the difference between us and the previous administration.
I think part of the proactive policing is community policing, which I taught classes here on to different police agencies. And it's getting out of the car and talking with citizens and going into businesses. But I think the other part of that question for proactive policing is looking for those things, working traffic when you're not on calls, pulling cars over, checking them. You might pull somebody over for a headlight out. Doesn't mean you have to give them a ticket, but you're engaging with that citizen. You're checking to see if they have warrants. You're checking to see if they have drugs in their car. And that's being proactive also. It's getting out on the street and talking to those neighbors when they get in complaints and saying, we're having speeders in our neighborhood, and it's working on that. But you stop vehicles when there is an infraction, and like I said, you don't have to give them a ticket every time. But you can stop them, and check with them, and engage with that citizen. And you may come up with a warrant. You may come up with a drug arrest out of that stop. So, and I just feel really strong about that is also part of being proactive.
Question specific to Bedford. Are you, Mr. Uhl, this is for you, are you planning on forcing Bedford Township to go to a paid department using your promised retired deputies? Paid, I guess, yeah.
I think I know what that question is about being, forming your own police department, I believe, because Bedford has talked about that for years. I've attended many meetings in Bedford at their request, organizations and PACs in Bedford. That question was posed to me, and here was my answer. If Bedford Township, it's your money, you can do what you want with your money. If you want to start your own police department, then it's my job as the sheriff to help you do that. Because I am an assisting agency. However, if you want to try to make the contract unit better with the sheriff's department, then we'll do that. I asked if I was elected, I told the group, if I was elected, would you please give me 6 months to show you a change? And at the end of that 6 months, if you decide to have your own police department, then it's the sheriff's department's job to assist you with that. I'll quote Benny Napoleon from Wayne County, who on national television said the exact same thing. It's the sheriff's department's job as an assisting agency. So if a smaller community, such as Dundee did, it's their money, they can do what they want with it. It's not their job to contract. If they want to, then that's fine. That's great, and they should be provided a great service. But if they choose not to, they should not be chastised or threatened. They should be assisted by the local sheriff's department in their endeavor to start another police department. I would encourage Bedford not to do that, and I have. And again, I'll say, I told them, give me 6 months to show them a change in service.
Reference our relation to Bedford also. What is the deal with the Bedford Township contract vehicles? Why was it relocated instead of being decommissioned? It only seemed, well, please clarify why and what your actions were and related to these cars and why they and what and where they are. Where they are.
I understand the question only because this is an issue that we dealt with recently. We work with the people in Bedford. We give them, they have 10 contract officers, we give them an additional 8 bodies down there. Part of our contract is when vehicles break down, well, this isn't part of the contract, but this is what we do. We have somebody that goes around to all the substations, picking up vehicles, transporting them around the county, getting them fixed, and then taking them back. Part of that is when they're down a car, we give them a county car to take and use while their vehicles are down. We've done that since the day I've taken office, and they've had the opportunity to not pay for those services like it actually says in the contract. November 17th of last year, Chief Deputy Veliquette went down to them, and for some reason, For the 2 years prior to that, they used to replace vehicles every year. They went 2 years without, had 2 vehicles between 150 and 160,000 miles. The car that had 150,000 miles, the transmission blew on it. They didn't know what to do with that. Chief Deputy Beliquet explained it to them. You can go ahead and sell it. You can do anything you want to with it. If you want to give it to us, then we will take it and we'll part it out. Because when we took over in 2013, our fleet was so outdated that we've been parting out cars now for 4 years. Nancy Tinneberry asked all the questions. Chief Deputy Beliquet answered those questions. She made a motion to give us the car so we could use it for parts. 2 weeks later, their other car, the motor blew in it. Okay, we did not have one spare car to send down there. So you either have 2 officers riding around in the same car, or we do something to make that happen. We found a transmission from one of our other cars, and we paid for that. Jack here from Rockwood Towing, he put it in for us, and we paid for those repairs and gave it back to Bedford Township. So they had a car to drive while we tried to go find a motor now for them for the other car. Jack was able to locate one down in Ohio for $2,500. They kept that car for 3 months while we put the motor into the other unit. When that was done, within 3 days, the engine blew in the Petersburg car. Okay? So we sent that car out to Petersburg. Then Petersburg had to make a decision, are we going to buy another car or what are we going to do? They decided to purchase one of our fleet vehicles. We had 2 left, brand new ones. So to do all the striping, put on all the equipment, all that other stuff. 2 weeks ago, they got that vehicle and we got 34 back, the car that they're talking about. And one of our county cars blew up down in Bedford. Okay, so now 34 is back in Bedford and it's being used by the officers that work out of the district down there. We make do with what we have. We route from Peter to pay Paul to keep the cars out onto the road. The commissioners have been good for us over the last 3 years. We have 2 more years of replacing vehicles and then our fleet will be brought up. And thanks to Jerry Uhl back here, next year we should be getting 7 more cars, but that takes time. So to answer your question, somebody thought we gypped them out of a car, then we didn't, if that makes sense.
Closing statements. Mr. Uhl, why did you harass the drug dealers out of Dundee?
Why did I?
Did you not? Why did you not harass the drug dealers out of Dundee?
Well, there is a problem, not just in Dundee and Petersburg and Ida. We are consistently responding to calls for dealers and raiding houses. Matter of fact, a small municipality like Dundee decided it was so important, we put an officer in the DEA when the Sheriff's Department took somebody out of the DNA. We then, that officer made the investigation on the Joe Rowe case, which is the biggest forfeiture case in the county history. He ran with that investigation, got the initial facts on that, and went through the whole investigation. We also use the DEA when we have a problem in Dundee, which all communities do, and yes, we do arrest them when we have that opportunity. We do a lot of door knocking when there is a suspect in a house that there's dealings going on. And we also use the DEA to come in and help us with that. And we also have used our mutual aid agreement with other municipal police departments to come in and help us with that.
Can I just respond to that?
Yes, to the DEA.
He, first of all, he mentioned harassment, okay? We have what's called the Constitution. We don't go out and harass people, okay? If you look at the jurisdictions throughout the country that are having problems in their community with relationships and things along that line, that's because those people are being harassed. We don't harass, that's number one, okay? Number two, he wants to go and harass people, drug dealers throughout the county. We all know where they're at. We all know where they're at. Last week, I think the question was directed probably at, you had two people die in Dundee, both you and Chief Offerman got on there and you said that you knew that that was a drug house, and I think the question was probably directed to, what did you do in your own jurisdiction to stop that when you knew that was a drug house, as opposed to what was going on in the county? So, again, my administration is not about harassing people. We go out and do our job. Imagine how many civil attorneys in Monroe County right now are sitting around saying, man, I hope that Uhl gets in, okay? Because we all know what's gonna happen and you guys are gonna pay for it.
The two individuals that he's referring to lived in the village of Dundee for 6 weeks and they came from Newport, Michigan. And it doesn't matter. They're all over, not just in Newport, not just in Dundee. And yes, we've been there before on domestic violence with those two before. We also have had problems at that residence that we've been at multiple times. And when we called our DEA agent in, he gave quite a bit of information that they had been working on surveillance with people in that apartment complex. And yes, let me make it real clear, the drug dealers will be harassed out of your communities.
And one final remark, Manus Unit Mark Moore, who is in charge out there, I spoke with him. He spent more hours, and the Manus Unit spent more hours on the Joe Rowe investigation than any other investigation that they had ever done. When it came down to the wiretaps for the doctor up in Bloomfield Hills, I believe it was, he turned that case over to the DEA agent in Detroit. He got no kudos for that. This is an opportunity to thank Mark Moore and Manus for putting that case together.
You claim to have a tough stand.
Mr. Corte,
Yes, sir.
I see my DEA agent back there grinning from ear to ear because I'm here to tell you he got the initial information from an informant. He then went and worked with Mantis on that. That is not the truth. And we work extremely hard with Mantis.
Okay. Sheriff Malone, you claim to have a tough stance against drugs. So why is it that you waited nearly a year after the county board gave approval for 3 more deputies? 2 of those were specified for the drug unit, before you even put 1 officer in the drug unit?
I don't know where you're getting that information. As soon as we took over, we stuck somebody in the drug unit. I don't do anything for corrections officers. I've made a pledge that we are going to promote within the corrections facility, the corrections officers, every opportunity that we get. When I promote somebody from that unit, it takes 2 months to do a background investigation on those people, to get their physicals, to get their psych evals, all that other stuff. Then that takes 14 or 18 weeks to go to the academy. Then they come out and then they go 12 weeks on the road in a training program and then 2 weeks by themselves. So that takes 32 weeks to get somebody out on the road. That's why last night when I asked for the additional bodies, There's a class starting up in the first week of January. And again, we've promoted, I think, 8 or 9, maybe 10 corrections officers, and I'm sending 2 more corrections officers to the academy.
Mr. Uhl, there have been several comments made that you are going to cut jobs from the deputies. Can you please elaborate on this concern?
I never said I was going to cut jobs from the deputies. I said I was going to reorganize the department. When all the years that I've been there, we already talked about animal control, that sergeant needs to go back out on the road, and that needs to return to a civilian position. As long as I was on the sheriff's department, 35 and a half years, the evidence was a civilian or a correctional position. That was now a deputy taken off the road and put into evidence. That position needs to be put back out in the road, and that needs to be returned to a civilian or a correctional position, which will also save money and put more people back out in the road. Also, there was several court officer positions that we can work with, to save some money and save some time. We need to talk, and I was talking to a judge about this last week, and he's very interested in talking about video arraignments. There's also a program that many counties do, and I know we do video arraignments now for out of county, but we can do them on a daily basis for arraignments. There's also another program that a lot of counties in the state of Michigan are doing, and that's video visitation, which can help get officers back out on the road, increase the safety. You're not taking people over through the hallway, the crowded hallway with relatives through the courthouse, so it increases security. When I was talking to the judge, a probation officer was standing there, and they were doing a hearing in the courtroom, and the judge asked him, and he said he would be, and his office would be very interested in talking about that. So it's not having deputies lose their jobs, it's getting them back out on the road, being a police officer. Like I said, there's one of the positions I thought would be, we need to get an officer doing drugs just in the school, all the schools. And that's a position one of those officers can move into. We can get more people into drug units. And that's where these positions need to be moved to.
What he's talking about is 3 years ago, the circuit court, district court, they got a grant. There's about half of the agencies in the state that have polycam. Traditionally, we would go to Alpena, Muskegon, Grand Rapids on a daily basis, which we continue to do when people just have a regular warrant. But when they have friend of the court warrants, they do polycam, that's a video cam between the agencies that actually have that and the Monroe courts. To do that, and the reason I didn't go to both polycam and the visitation, let's start with visitation. When that was introduced to us 3 years ago, they said, listen, we can provide this service for you, and you can make a lot of money, and we can make a lot of money. And I'm like, in what way? Well, if you have visitation by polycam, you can charge those people as much money as you want so they can see their loved ones on the TV screen. Again, I'm here to represent citizens of Monroe County. People make mistakes, their loved ones get locked up. I'm not going to charge those people exorbitant fees just so we can reduce them from coming down to the jail and talk to their loved ones. The second part of that is you have to have a physical structure with a camera system set in, and you have to have additional officers, not less. The jail is at minimum staffing right now. So if you want to have video arraignments in a room that we don't have available right now, you have to hire another officer to stay with them. you have to hire 2 more officers that are gonna be doing nothing but going and getting those people out of the day rooms and bringing them for arraignments. And currently, the way the system is set up is when those inmates go across the street, they talk to their attorneys over there. Sometimes, we had 47 arraignments in one day the other day. Could you imagine 47 attorneys coming to the sheriff's department, going into records where we only have 2 girls working, filling out the paperwork, setting upstairs? Then you have to have an additional body up there sitting with those attorneys to make sure nothing's getting passed and all that other stuff. So his idea, again, is going to cost 5 additional corrections officers. So you can throw it out there, but when you're the sheriff, you have to look at every angle, okay, not some feel-good stuff, on how you're going to operate. And that's what we've done.
What I did is I sat down with a judge who said nobody will talk about it. Doesn't mean that you can do it. It means that you cooperate, you sit down and you work as a team and you at least talk about it. It's called thinking outside the box. And if you don't try and you don't talk, you can't come up with new ideas and ways to save money, increase security, and enhance the service of the county. You have to think outside the box and you have to talk to people.
Question, and I'll paraphrase this question because it's fairly long, and it relates to school safety. So what, each one of you, what do you plan to do to ensure that our schools are safe? How do you work with the schools like this one, not just the K-12s, pre-K-12s, but also like this institution, to ensure that schools like this are safe? We know we've had shootings on college campuses as well as at various schools. So what would you do to ensure that schools like this and K-12s are safe or safer?
We've had mock trainings at airport community schools, full-blown mock disasters, involved the fire departments, rescue personnel, buses, transportation to other facilities. We also did that down in Bedford. Our SWAT team practices on a monthly basis at the various school districts throughout the county. They've also done demonstrations out here, full-blown demonstrations at the community college. We have the plans for every building, for every school district in the county. Our SWAT team does, and we do, in case an incident should go down. We've had formal training with all of our officers, so we're not like Columbine, that we wait for people. That all of our officers are trained to respond directly to the call and enter the building. So to answer your question, we're doing as much as we can with the resources that we have available to make sure our children stay safe in Monroe County.
All right, thank you. Mr. Uhl?
We work closely with our school in Dundee, and Chief Opperman has gone over and evaluated the situation there, and we're making many improvements there. One of the things when at the Chiefs meeting that we have on a monthly basis at Erie, the state police brought in Washtenaw County, and they did a little seminar on Alice training. And that's a new thought process for schools. It used to be like, remember when we'd have drills in school and there's going to be a nuclear bomb and you put a book over top of your head and you hide underneath your desk, which didn't do anything. This is a little outside the box thinking through the training, and it's basically, if there's an active shooter in this room and you're 3 classes on the other end of the building, then common sense tells you that you get out of the building. You run, you don't hunker down and get underneath your desk. So now with this Alice training, it's locked, they have devices to lock your door and secure it. If somebody is entering your classroom, you grab a stapler, a pencil, a pen, a book, and you fight for your life. But if you aren't in the area, then you flee the building and you have places where you meet up. So after these training sessions at the Erie restaurant, and they brought it to a vote of all the chiefs from the city police, all the municipals. Lieutenant Cuevas was there from the Michigan State Police Department, and we all voted to go with Alice except the Sheriff's Department. And we are entering into training. We're working closely with Lieutenant Cuevas, and we're all instituting the Alice program, and that's where our direction is leading.
Real quick on that. Real quick on that. The chiefs meeting that I never go to, when this was brought up, I asked all the chiefs that were there to commit one person from their department so we could go around and do Alice training. They all gave me their commitment. Not one showed up. Since that time, except Dundee, we, the Sheriff's Department, has went to every school district in this county and taught Alice training.
All right, so now you each have 2 minutes to make closing statements. And Chief Uhl, you may begin. 2 minutes to make a closing statement.
Thank you. As I indicated before, we need to move in a new direction. We need change. We need to open up our communication with the community. We need to engage the community and bring them in for assistance in our organization. We need to reach out to churches. We need to reach out to the rehab facilities, which I've been to all of them, and everyone indicates they get no cooperation. We need to work with those people. You just can't put them in jail and let them loose. You have to have organizations working with them, and they're all pieces of the pie. They all do something different. We went down to the Baptist Church on Lewis Avenue in Bedford last week, spent about 3 hours there, and they have a program that they do. Is it right for everybody? No, it's not. But they can come into the jail and they can assess those individuals, and they may be able to take 1 or 2 of them out of there and put them into their program and help them. Also, there's a program that the Michigan State Police is doing, and they're cooperating with 200 police departments nationwide for this program. It's called Angels. And they have a group of citizen volunteers that have been trained to evaluate each person that has been incarcerated, their specific need, or what type of agency that best suits them that they need to go to. They immediately, so whatever time it is, they come in and do an assessment, and it's not next week, it's not tomorrow. They immediately take that person and take them to where they need to go for treatment and assist in that. So that's what we need. I guess that's my pleasure.
Oh, yeah, kind of saw that.
So we need to reach out to the community, and we need to work together as a team with all agencies, all police departments, and all agencies in the county.
Real quick, when I started out, I talked about special interest groups, the promises that he's made to everybody in this community. That's number one. Number two, exactly what he just got done talking about, that's called Ryan's Hope. There's a short window when somebody decides to go into recovery. You call us, you call George Barrett, you call any other police agencies, we will have somebody out there within an hour to take you and guide you into recovery. We're already doing that. One thing that we didn't touch on is mental health issues in Monroe County. Major Goodenough and our mental health workers, they're sitting right here, 3 years ago wrote a grant. What we found out was the recidivism rate at the sheriff's office was huge. They wrote a grant. We got first year a couple of clinicians. This year we got 3. They've spoken with over 900 people and determined that those people in initial interviews had some kind of mental health issues. 32% of that serious health issues. They're working with those people on a daily basis. The last chapter in the grant that they wrote is last Friday. We started a mental health court here in Monroe County. And it's several agencies, the Sheriff's Department, the prosecutors, probation, parole, mental health. It's a volunteer program that you have to enter into, and there's a whole set of serious guidelines that you need to follow. And it takes 18 months to get through the program. If you successfully complete it, then your charges would be dropped. We need to continue working with the mental health people and people with mental health issues in this county. We got that dumped on us years ago. We need to continue working on that. I want to thank for everybody who's endorsed us, and I'd like to wish Mr. Uhl good luck on next Tuesday.
Thank you all for coming this evening. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Mr. Uhl. And thanks to all of you. Remember to vote on November 8th and vote yes for the college. All right, thank you.